We're essentially on the farm here producing apples for cider, and the farmer wants me to put bees here to pollinate the apples, and I want the bees to go to the apples so they produce nectar to turn into honey for us to sell. So it's a sort of symbiotic relationship. It's extremely important that this takes place because of the national food supply. Of the national food supply, about £185 million worth a year is totally dependent upon the pollination of bees. Sadly, the populations of bees and beekeepers, for that matter, have diminished quite rapidly really over the last 30 years. When I came first of all to Brecconshire, which is 35 years ago now, there would have been about 100 beekeepers in the old county of Brecon with about 300 hives. If you take me out of it now, there's about 30 beekeepers with not much more than 100 hives between them. Because of the difficult seasons, because of the lack of the changes in agriculture, less so perhaps in this county, but in the bigger arable areas, apart from oilseed rape, there's been huge changes in the foraging habits of bees because of the changes in crops and the loss of hedgerow and the loss of permanent pasture and so forth. In 1992, we had the advent of a varroa arriving in Great Britain. This is a symbiotic parasite which lives on the bees, and as such, although they do damage to hives on a big scale if they're allowed to multiply too much, they don't actually kill the bees. But what they do is they lower the immune system of the bees. So from a pathological point of view, they allow the bees to attract, if you like, more disease than otherwise would have been the case if they were healthy and not supporting varroa as well. And at the present time, we've got something like 15 different viruses in the national bee stock, of which I have got 7 in my own bees at the present time. And of course, it's not like human medicine, it's quite difficult to treat because we're producing food at the end of the day, and to treat viruses or anything of that nature with antibiotics is a big no-no because we don't want the antibiotics to get in the honey. We've had a dreadfully long winter, and from a beekeeping point of view, it's taken us all our ability to get the bees to survive through the winter because it's lasted about 7 months, and we had this cold east wind for 5 weeks which really sucked the heat out of the hives and they wouldn't breed, and the old bees died off and the young bees hadn't come forward. So we're about 3 weeks later at this point in time, but so is the blossom, and I'm very hopeful now that if we could just get a week of good weather, the bees will be out and doing the business for the farmer and doing the business for me.